All right, well, thank you everybody for being here. Appreciate it. Hold on, let me get to. Perfect. I'm going to call the meeting to order. We meet today on settled indigenous land, which is the traditional territory of the Chinookan peoples of the Wasco, Wishram, Warm Springs, and Grand Ronde tribes. Let us honor this land as traditional native stewards, past, present, and future, and strive today to embody the commitment to cultural equity and reconciliation, ecological conservation, and sustainability. In this spirit, I hereby call this meeting to order at 4:15 p.m. Tia, will you do a roll call, please?
Yes. Greg Pack, Chair.
Here.
Megan Ramey, Vice Chair.
Here.
Daryl Roberts, Secretary.
Here.
Megan Larrabee. Laura Dunn. Here. Jeff Helfrich. And Letty Moretti.
Okay, thank you, Tia. Next on the agenda, item number 3, approval of the September 21st meeting minutes. Has everybody had a chance to review those?
Yeah, my name, I noticed my name was misspelled. I think item 6. Sorry about that.
Yes.
All right.
Any other changes or adjustments? Okay, can I get a motion to accept the minutes?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Daryl.
Second.
Thank you, Laura. Any other further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, any opposed? And chair votes aye. Now is up for public comment. Now is the opportunity for the public to comment regarding discussion items that are not on the agenda today. Is there anyone that would like to make a public comment?
Megan
You
has
can
her
raise
hand
your hand. Megan, you're not public, but you're welcome to
I think
comment.
it's just my
Oh,
hand.
up. I was like, that
change your
hand
cursor,
looks
would you?
different. That's funny.
Sorry, her cursor was in the shape of a hand and it was up like this. So. All right, so no public comment. We'll move on to agenda item number 5, land use analysis and TOD toolkit presentation. Andrew Parrish, you have the floor.
And you are available to share your screen as well.
All right, super. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, and you should now be seeing a PowerPoint.
Looks good.
All right, thanks for having me back. Again, my name is Andrew Parrish with MIG, doing some work with Amy on land use analysis and getting to the point where we're putting together a TOD toolkit for the transit master plan. Just you probably are fairly familiar with this, but what is TOD? That basically we're looking at it as a way to integrate land use and development practices with transit in order to reduce reliance on the private automobile overall. And it's coordinating plans and future development with transit needs for mutual benefit. And really what it comes down to is making a good pedestrian experience near transit stops, and kind of how do we help make that actually happen on the ground and the varying conditions that you have there in Hood River County. So this toolkit aims to be a resource for you all in conversations with the county and its member jurisdictions. If you have developers or property owners who either are interested in providing some transit amenities or facilities, which is the case with some of the kind of Mid-Columbia housing projects, for example, or perhaps if you if there are developers who are on key sites that would really benefit from transit, maybe they haven't thought about it yet. Also aiming to be useful for any transportation advocates who come and say, how can we help? And you'll have a better sense of the places that you might want to put their energy or their funds. Same with funding organizations. So this presentation pulls from an ODOT I guess, booklet called Transit for Small Cities that has some pretty relevant graphics that I've cited here. So this one is, when you're thinking about an actual transit stop, what are the entities that are responsible for making that stop a success? So there's the stop itself, and that's you all. That's, getting the stop there, making sure the transit service is great. There's public connections to transit. So that's the sidewalks, the bike lanes, the street infrastructure. And then there's the adjacent development, which is usually a private developer, a property owner. And so it's really getting these three spheres to cooperate to make transit work that we're trying to achieve here. The toolkit is going to talk about a couple of different kinds of transit facilities. So these are, bus stops, park and rides, the mobility hub concept that you're bringing forward, and then what kinds of amenities might be appropriate for those. And those are things like benches or lighting or good landscaping, that kind of thing. I really like this typology that you have for your standard stops where, we just need a place for people to be. It's nice if they have a place to sit down. Maintenance is going to be a concern. So, real low maintenance needs for those. Those are going to have different needs than the more intensive sheltered stops where you're going to want to think about maintenance and garbage removal. You're going to want to have better connections to the street and to neighboring development. And then these mobility hubs are going to be the most intensive development. They're going to have the most planning needed, the most coordination needed. So as you identify those locations, getting that onto the radar of local jurisdictions and getting them to start thinking, okay, if there is new development, if we are putting money into this corridor, how do we want to treat this mobility hub? And so we've got some strategies for that. It's also a great time to think about stop branding, ways to partner with local businesses or other folks to help pay for some of either the upkeep of these stops or some other identified purposes. And we've got just a couple of examples of good branding there. And you've got the CAT brand itself. So I think there's lots of good kind of co-branding opportunities that you can have there. Have a little fun with it. Another item that we'll address in the toolkit is just real kind of high level information about some of the trade-offs between having bus stops at certain locations at an intersection. So is it on the near side of the intersection? Does it have its own pullout, or is it in the lane? There's sort of issues with traffic that is kind of passing on the left if you are on a near side of the intersection. If you're on the far side, it's a trade-off with traffic that may be backing up, and if they don't stop early enough, they might be backing up further into the intersection itself. And then mid-block stops, they might not always have a pedestrian crossing, and so that's something that you'll want to really be thinking about and maybe advocating for, is putting a nice mid-block crossing where that's the best location. So each of these really needs its own detailed design look basically at each stop. And again, it's sort of an issue of trade-offs. And so we're going to try to highlight what those trade-offs are so that as you're thinking about new locations, you have a reference for those. Here's some graphics that show kind of mid-lane stops versus pull-out stops. Again, you need more right-of-way for these pull-out stops, but they do allow traffic to pass. And generally, I think state highways, they prefer or maybe require you to have pull-out stops. And so that's, I know, been an ongoing conversation with ODOT and others of where it might be appropriate or allowed to have some of those in the lane mid-block stops. We'll have a nice list of the kinds of amenities that you can consider for different types of stops. And again, the concerns as far as maintenance and available space and ADA accessibility. Do you actually have enough room at these stops to accommodate these amenities? Just to give you kind of a menu of options for each stop as you go forward with planning. And again, these mobility hubs are going to be the larger facilities that really need to have intermodal connections and provide an opportunity for more kind of community benefit for those art spaces, more gathering spaces. probably are going to be only located in a couple of key locations. So this is that ODOT manual again for transit for small cities. They've got some good examples of how some of these design upgrades to stops can really improve the experience of transit. So on the left, you have an existing transit stop that has very little pedestrian access. It's not ADA friendly at all. There's broken kind of sidewalk there, and there aren't really neighboring uses that are inviting for folks. The signage itself is set pretty far back and might be hard to see for potential users. And so on the right is kind of a diagram of how that might look better, and kind of the idealized version of having a crosswalk to link to that stop, having some areas for the bus to pull out, direct connections to buildings that are built up against the sidewalk to provide a good, welcoming pedestrian experience. So these are the kinds of things that you're shooting for generally. And the current stops that we've got some photos of here are a mix of these more permanent amenities and some temporary kind of signs that are out. It looks like there are some locations where it's pretty convenient to have something that is kind of movable or a short-term stop there. So, as a small rural transit district, you're going to face these choices in every situation. But the goal of the toolkit is to be a resource if there is, new development at some of these intersections, to enable you to get into that conversation and say, wouldn't it be nice if we had X, Y, and Z? Park and rides are another topic area here, and another set of choices, and actual park and ride locations may be pretty limited there in the gorge, of course. But we've got some recommendations for different types of park and rides. There's areas where it's really just parking in the neighborhood and it serves as a de facto park and ride. There are situations where you can have an official agreement with neighboring businesses that it's used as a park and ride during certain hours of the day, and may be beneficial for these businesses because you're actually bringing potential customers close to them or on their site. And then there's official park and rides, which are areas that you would actually own and operate yourselves. There's definitely going to be different considerations between your more urban environments there and the rural locations. Sidewalk and bikeway access and street crossings are really important in your urban areas. But in some of these more rural locations, you might just have to do the best you can and locate where there are existing pedestrian facilities at all, trying your best to make clear kind of demarcations of where folks are supposed to be, and making sure that there's room for pedestrians to wait safely. The implementation section of this report is going to have some of the more kind of wonky development code recommendation pieces, but overall, we just want to point out that there's lots of opportunities for CAT to engage with the development process. So every jurisdiction in the county itself are going to go through periodic kind of big visioning processes where they have a vision for the county or for the transportation system plan. They're going to ask for stakeholder input. Public transit is going to be part of that overall transportation system plan that these communities do, and those are good opportunities for you to be involved and to have these kind of high-level policy discussions that will wind up down the road at development code provisions. Here's just a little diagram about how land development actually occurs. And so in the pre-development period, the pre-application conference is where lots of jurisdictions say, if you're on an identified transit corridor, you need a service provider letter, or you need a meeting at least with the transit district to show that you've considered their plans, and if there's an opportunity to get transit facilities on your site, then we want you to do that. And so that's probably where that conversation would start happening. But it really starts with getting some broad kind of comprehensive plan policies at the county level and at the local jurisdiction level that is in support of transit and what your goals are, which are to, to move employees around, to move tourists around and visitors and others. So I think that's a good place to start. And we've got some great example language that we'll include in the toolkit. And then that filters down into these development code requirements like pre-application requirements, other coordination, and you can get to the point where exactions are actually spelled out to some extent, depending on how you want to go about, getting these mobility hubs built, basically. So we hope to give you a lot of options that are useful in future conversations. Those development code topics, they'll include things like changes to the definition section of the code, what the parking requirements say about transit facilities and how much, vehicle and bicycle parking is required. Coordination again, like I said, and then some of these items about urban form. We do really want to support pedestrian-friendly urban form near your transit stops to the extent possible, because that will be a benefit to you all and your ridership, and also be an amenity for the future users of those sites. And so I think I'll go ahead and just stop there. I've been talking for a while, so I'll open it up to questions and happy to take advice or just comments at this point.
When's the deadline to have the toolkit in place?
So we are, I believe, targeting into the year as a final deadline. So I think we're looking at mid to late November for a series of drafts to come your way.
Yep, and our goal is for the draft plan in general to be the end of the year, maybe beginning January 2023.
Sure. And Andrew, in that toolkit too, when working with, say the county government or planning department to get in that process when developers are looking at doing multifamily, to make it a requirement to, reach out to transit, what's been the best way to make that happen, or what's the mechanism to make that happen? Is that an easy process? Is that coming in the toolkit, or is that kind of need to work with you further on how to develop that?
Yeah, so we've got, we'll have recommendations for comprehensive plan and code language that you would want the county or the city of Hood River or the city of Cascade Locks to have as part of their development code. And generally, I think the easiest thing to do would be to require concurrence or require that a development is consistent with the adopted transit plan, basically. So once you have a transit plan in place that says, this is our identified high priority corridor, this is where we think a stop ought to go, that's the kind of thing that a local jurisdiction can rely on and say, you need to show us that it's consistent with that plan, kind of the same way that a water utility or an electricity utility would be required. You need to show us that you've talked to these service providers and that they think they can serve your property and that you're meeting the needs of the adopted transit plan. But just based on conversations with stakeholders that we did early on in this process, I think having that plan and getting these jurisdictions comfortable with what's in your transit plan is the first step, and then the rest of it will follow.
And just to add on to that, it's my responsibility to work with the different jurisdictions to lead up to this, but then also have the support of you all. And when you are talking to city council members or et cetera, or city administrators, to encourage them to put these things in place.
And Andrew, how long does that usually take to get through that process?
I mean, years. It usually it's when, in my experience anyway, it's been when a jurisdiction is going through a transportation system plan update, which happens every, I don't know, 5 years or so. I'm not actually sure when the most recent one for the Hood River County or its cities have occurred. But with the new,
River just
had one, yeah.
like a year ago, I think at this point.
Yeah, so it really, it's really whenever they're opening up their books and saying, okay, what are our policies or what should our code be? There are also opportunities in particular areas, like Hood River is doing a plan for the Heights kind of streetscape area. So there might be specific locations where they're doing kind of a big look that are opportunities to get that that in the code as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for the update, Andrew. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, we are on to agenda item number 6, the September financial report. Teresa, the floor is yours.
Thank you. We're ending now the first quarter of the fiscal year. So cash on hand was 1.2 million. That's about 215,000 more than last month. Of that amount, 912 is still in the CIT account. It hasn't changed much. I don't know, by now, Amy, you should probably be getting some notices on the tax revenue that is anticipated. If you get that, and could forward it to me, that would be helpful for me. Accounts receivable, the balance at the end of September was 26,000. And I think, Tia, you wanted to give some information on the accounts on that. Is that correct?
Yes, I just wanted to kind of give a little overview of what those are. And the 3 that we're waiting on currently are Skamania County and the Forest Service. Both for Skamania County is the Dog Mountain Service. The Forest Service is the Dog Mountain Service, and the Falls to Lock Service, kind of Multnomah Falls, thank you, combined into the one. And then we also have a current invoice for in situ. So that is what makes the 26,000. The Skamania County and Forest Service have been approved. We're still just waiting for their payment process, but we should be receiving those any day.
Where were we at last month dollar-wise?
I think we were at the same last year, or last year, I'm sorry, last month.
Okay.
Yes.
And the in situ one is for employee passes.
And yep, that's where we are with the accounts receivable right now. So hopefully those will be cleared up here soon.
Okay.
Thanks, Teresa.
So in terms of liabilities, AP is the one that moves quite a bit. We were only at 9,000 at the end of September. It's the lowest we've had in a long time for an end of month close. And those were all paid in October with the first check run.
I wanted to add on to that real quick too, Teresa, sorry.
Oh, okay.
So the balance that's left at the end of the month that shows for the beginning of the next month, those are all invoices that I received the beginning of the next month. So they were dated for services that ended like September 30th. And so I received those invoices within the first week of October. And so that's why those show as September invoices that weren't cleared up until October. I just wanted to make
Couldn't
sure.
pay them in a day.
I know, right? Come on. All right, sorry, Teresa, it's all yours.
Yeah, no worries. So moving on to the income statement, year to date, excuse me, year to date revenue is at 736,000. That's about 299,000 more than last year at this point in the year. Most of that is due to the timing of the CARES Act funds that were received. Cost of goods, the total for all the categories of cost of goods for the first quarter is 144,000. Fuel and insurance premiums are the only two items that are more this year than last year. And all the other items are significantly less than budget by a total of $446,000. Most of that is due to the matching funds that had been budgeted. So when you're comparing the bottom line, I understand that the activity for that will be starting up soon. So we just haven't experienced it in the first quarter yet. Administrative expenses. So far this year, the total is $50,000. That's $9,000 under budget. The office supplies are just a little bit high, but it's due to one print order, and that's going to level out as the year goes on. So it's nothing to really pay attention to. Personnel expenses are $379,000 for the quarter, and this is $54,000 under the amount budgeted. Year-over-year comparison is not real helpful because of ramping up from the last of the pandemic. So at the end, net income for September is $322,000. The budgeted net income was $265,000. So we have a positive variance of 56. Are there any questions?
Come on, Carol, now's your time to shine.
I just had one about a couple on the revenues. One is that, and this isn't really a question for Teresa, but more staff. Did we expect our revenues to increase this year and they haven't for some reason? I mean, I would expect they would, and they haven't. They're about the same. Is there reason for that?
So the
I'm talking about the fair revenue.
Gonna add the fair revenue has increased, although it's not really showing on here, is it?
So will we
Okay,
see
well,
that in the
she's-
operations report with ridership numbers, or is it?
Well, the place that we've really seen it, when I've been doing grant report, or when we've been doing grant reporting, there you can see the large increase of specifically this past summer, and then Chopin Transit too.
And are you looking at calendar year to date and fiscal year to date?
I don't know. That might be what we need to double check. So maybe we can double check that, and then we can follow up after the board meeting with you on that. Well, everybody will send a little email following up on that, because it's not showing that. But that should have been one of the reasons why there was increased revenue. The other thing just to note on that is for the increased amount of CARES Act funds, a large amount of that is part of the F2L revenue that we received from ODOT. They used CARES Act funds to pay us because the contract at that time had not yet been finalized.
What's that 2L stand for?
Sorry, false alarms. That was that additional service we did between Portland and Cascade North.
And the
Sorry,
state
what was that, Daryl?
funds, the state funds are quite a bit lower than projected. Is that just a case of we haven't collected money we think we're going to get before long, or are we really?
Just timing specifically.
Can I add just a comment here, Amy?
Yes, please.
The budget was a level month-to-month budget, Daryl. So it doesn't easily show the peaks and valleys of when the timing of things happen. And that's just the choice of how it was put together this year. It's a little different than years past, but it's not wrong. It's just a preference. At the end of the year, it will all level out. It just makes it a little bumpy along the way when you're comparing.
That's why I asked the question, is it just money we haven't collected yet that we think we will, or are we really going to get shorted by the state and we didn't know that?
No, Amy can explain it, but all the grants are on quarterly drafts, basically. So CAT has to pay for most of their expenses in front of getting that revenue. And then it comes in behind to reimburse for the expense. And that's the part that's leveled out in the budget.
Then
Okay.
additionally, this kind of takes into account, so that originally the falls to locks should have been paid through state funds. But because the contract had been not been signed in time, they put money in our CARES fund so that we could use that to kind of mitigate the shortfall. They being ODOT. So that is partial why the state funding is a little lower. And then just like Teresa stated, there's just the reimbursement process to get those funds. So it's all, it should be reflected in the next month, as long as we've received the grants that we've requested by then.
And those are being worked on now.
Yeah. And specifically for Q1, so that's
Yes.
July through September 30th.
Okay.
Daryl, you kind of look like Tim the Toolman, Taylor's neighbor. But it's good to see you.
It's good to see your forehead.
Yeah, good to see your forehead.
Oh, sorry. I can't.
All right, any other questions for Teresa and our team? Connie? Okay, thank you, Teresa, appreciate it.
Sure.
Next up is agenda item number 7, resolution and action items. Amy, you have a few items to discuss with the board.
I sure do. Okay, so the first item, 7A, I do need your approval or recommendation for the white salmon weekend service application that the staff is intending to submit. There is a memo within your board packet that described, I had come to you this summer to ask for your approval to kind of move forward to research it. We have worked with Mount Adams Transportation Service as well as White Salmon and Bingen. The cities of White Salmon and Bingen will be supplying the match. And the application itself, the cost will be just over $30,000. So I do need your approval in order to apply for that fund, that grant. And again, the operation would be starting next summer. It would be weekends only. And then it'll go through June 30th of 2025. Any questions?
The net budget impact to us is 0.
Correct.
Yeah.
It would not cost us any additional money since those cities would be covering the match.
I knew that answer, I just thought I'd throw it out.
Yeah, I was gonna just confirm that too.
Yeah, that's a good question. I do, it's all on the memo as well. So the operating day, so it would, service would be on average every 2 hours between 6:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. And the grant period would be July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2025. And then each summer, the operating days would be a little bit different just because of the timing of the grant and the expense. So on average, so the first year it'd be 10,000, the second year it'd be 15,000, and the third summer it'd be 4,000, and that just.
And is it just transit across the bridge or including stops within White Salmon?
So it would include stops within White Salmon. So it'd be very similar to the fixed route service that Mount Adams does during the weekdays. We would probably trim that a bit because in situ obviously doesn't operate on the weekends. And if any person needed, AD eligible client needed service, they would request and they would deviate
Okay.
on request.
So summer weekends only.
Summer weekends only, and the intent of this would be to show the need for that
Mhm.
service
Mhm.
and show the viability of it long term.
And do they aim to eventually take that up themselves if they get the grant monies or?
So I think the hope is that depending on the success of the service, that they commissioners over in White Salmon would, or in Cleckutuck County, excuse me, would see the need of the service and support it.
To be provided by them.
Yes.
Got it. Any other questions out there, guys?
Studies in the waiting.
Oh, great. Kathy, is there anything additional you think I should add as you've been kind of helping me through this process that I might have missed?
No, I don't think so. You mean as far as the project itself?
Yeah, the project itself and support. We've gotten a large amount of letters of support from the organizations on the Washington side for support of this project to provide that link for people on weekends. As right now, that's kind of a huge gap, and that's been identified in the Gorge Transit Regional Strategy as well, that there's no service between White Salmon and Hood River on the weekends. And when we're trying to push a regional transit network for visitors and locals, and there's no access at all across that bridge on the weekends, not only is a huge equity issue, it's a huge issue when we're trying to push the transit network in general.
So I'll move to approve this.
Did you want to do all these in one motion or you want to do each individual?
Let's do each individual.
Okay.
Because they're all a little different.
So we have a motion. to
Megan, I'll
approve the right-
second.
Okay, you got a second? Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, any contrary minded? All right, chair votes aye. Motion passes. All right,
Great, thank you.
7B.
Tia's gonna take this one on.
Yes. So after speaking with Daryl, we discussed Teresa, who has been amazing and filling in for us on a month-to-month basis while we were searching through the RFP process. She did also submit a proposal, and we would like to move forward with approving Teresa to fill that position through this fiscal year. And then we would reevaluate at the end of this fiscal year and see kind of which, if she still has interest in continuing and just kind of where we're at. We feel it'd be really beneficial with Teresa knowing the ins and outs of CAT and helping us through this, or being a part of the audit with the new auditors and kind of being a guide for me as well.
Yeah,
Good job.
yes, no, that specifically also to help, since this is Tia's first audit, to kind of help bridge the gap between our auditors and Tia as well. But also it will give us one more year with our current system, and then we can, or you all, because this is, you know, under your responsibility, reassess and reevaluate what you all think is appropriate and what is the level of oversight that we need to make sure that we're checking all our boxes and have all the right controls in place.
Thought you said you didn't like Teresa because she was mean.
You were supposed to tell her that I
She's
need
still on.
her.
I should look up there.
You have to have better timing.
Sorry. All right, so do we have a motion?
This is Letty.
I'll
I'll make a motion.
Okay, Letty, thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll say
Okay,
that.
Laura, thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, any contrary minded? Chair votes aye. 7B passes.
Thanks, Teresa.
Thank you, Teresa, for sticking on. Appreciate it.
I like working with you guys. Thank you.
7C.
All right, great. So similar to last board meeting, I will be asking for the board's approval of another STIF committee member. To round out our committee membership, we do need a representative or a writer who represents the senior community. We did find an applicant. Her name is Taylor England. She is also on our TMP Community Advisory Committee. She is the support coordinator, I believe that's the right title, at Detman House. So she works with low-income seniors, and she is wonderful. She is a huge help out with our Gorge Transit Connect program and working with those seniors so that they can use our services and they have access to transit. So I am asking for your approval to appoint her to the SDIF committee, advisory committee.
Sounds great. I move to appoint her.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Laura. A second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Megan. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Chair votes aye. 7C is passed. Okay, 7D.
All right. So I included a memo in your board packet. I do have some updates on that memo. So I am asking for the board's approval to apply for funding for the Dog Mountain service this next year. We are kind of still working on finalizing it, but in order to use community county lodging tax funds, we do need to submit just a brief application. It would be for about $10,000 to go towards the service. After writing this memo, I also realized that we could potentially apply for WashDOT consolidated grant funds, which is similar to what we're applying for the white salmon weekend service. So I need to have a couple more conversations up to, which is the appropriate place to apply for funds, but I am looking for your approval to approve me to apply for one of those because the consolidated grant funds is due. So the white salmon application, as well as if we did the Dog Mountain one through WashDOT, would be due the 26th, I believe. So it's kind of a quick turnaround, but I think we can pull it off. So in general, I just need your approval to apply for funds for the appropriate funding source.
Thank you for defining the ask.
I'm in favor. I'm wondering, Amy, about how many more hours of service would we be adding?
So I think we'd need to look at that, but I think we would probably apply for a similar level of service that we did this year. Ty, do you by chance know off the top of your head?
No, off the top of my head, I'm trying to pull it up right now.
Okay. I think general, our operating hours was 8 to 5.
Yeah, I think it was about 16 hours a day.
Yeah, so that was at two buses.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah. I think on average, that's every 30-minute service.
Yeah, it was every 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just maybe a little bit more than like 17 hours with the pre and post trips and stuff on it.
So I move to approve that.
Thank you,
let's
Laura.
move it
Do we-
along.
do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Letty. Okay, any further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed or contrary minded? Chair votes aye, 7D passes. All right, we're on to agenda item number 8, Ty, operations report.
A employee of the month. This month is Starla Jones. She joined us probably 8 months ago, is a lifelong bus driver. She is a lot of work in the best possible way. She will come in if there is anything wrong with the route sheet. She has a question. Why is this way? Why is this that way? She will take Like we just did a new bid for the drivers, 1st of October. She came in, she took every single route home, like to study them, like, I need this before I go do it. So she's very, very on top of it.
Awesome.
We're very happy with her overall.
And I would say on top of that, based on kind of her questions and her suggestions, you know, it's helping us build best practice for
Yeah.
driver training.
It's helping everyone.
Yeah. Exactly.
Some drivers can do a lot of work in a bad way, she does a lot of work in a great way.
Very diligent person. We appreciate her.
Sorry, who is Gisela? Is that a member of the public?
Yeah.
Okay, welcome.
Performance report. Go through it pretty quick. Our safety score is back up a little bit. We have all the vehicles tracked down, but one on the loose Samsara boxes in there. So this will be the last actual month that we have any false reports. So we had 27 total reports. We had 2 actual harsh events. One was right here, a vehicle started to pull out, and there was another vehicle. They were both harsh braking events. Neither of them were, I would say, our driver's fault. They were both braking. One was a vehicle up in Heights and a vehicle pulling out on 1213th, and then the other one was a vehicle right here pulling around the bus. Our drive time went down a little bit because we reduced the false blocks service. Our percentage over speed limit also came down, and our miles driven also came down. On-time performance, largely the same for fixed route, down a little bit for the within 5 minutes on dial-up. I haven't looked into that ton to see why that exactly is, but for the within 15 minutes, we're still 99% on time. Our fuel usage was down again because we reduced service levels, and our cost per mile is identical. Questions? I ran through that pretty quick, and we are now 1 minute behind schedule.
Thanks for getting us
Oh,
caught up.
oh, nope, I got one more thing on here, I have to see. So we also have the digital signage update. So over there, we have what is supposed to be our digital signs that are supposed to be out at all of our bus stops. You should be able to see
Very real-time. updates.
real time. The next bus is 15 minutes away. If it's delayed, the sign will know and not just say it's scheduled for 5 minutes. It'll know that the bus is in traffic or whatever else. Those are supposed to be out on the street at least 6 months ago or so. We've been having issues, or the vendor has been having issues with getting the SIM cards to work correctly. We're using Asset out of the Dallas as our IT group. So he was here today, did some work on them. They got them to work over Wi-Fi, and we've sent 2 units back. We got 15 units total, so we've sent 2 back. They are repairing those, and hopefully by next week, they're supposed to have these ones working.
And if they don't at this point, we're kind of at the end of our rope. So we will be entertaining next steps with them and figuring out what we need to do, resolve the situation, whether it's.
They were supposed to have an update for me to provide an update for you. But I didn't get one.
So we need to resolve this. This is something that we promised the public and our partners, and we need to
It's
get
something
it
that
resolved.
we really want.
Are they going on the existing stop sign posts?
Yes.
Okay. And those posts are designed to handle something that big with the,
Yes.
So the purple ones. So I don't know
Yeah.
if you saw in Andrew's presentation, there was a couple of different options, right? But the purple ones and the shelters can sustain that.
Good.
And then that is the intent of all of our bus stops, is to have permanent signs.
I mean, the actual digital sign isn't that big. It's the solar panel is the main thing. So whenever possible, we hook up to shore power. It's like here, we could plug right into our power, or Walmart or something, we could likely use their power.
And Ty is continuing to work with the city about the bus stops. It's kind of, this summer has been a little crazy, but we're going to jump back into it and get more movement on that. However, we are kind of adjusting our approach based on the fact that from our transit master plan, some of our routes may change, so we don't want to put some permanent stops if there's the possibility for some of these to change. So,
We are working, like even today. We're waiting to hear back from Safe, and we can put the engine back into the week.
That's awesome. And then we're also, Ty is working on making our stop outside more ADA friendly, which is great. And we have funds from our SDIF project formula to do that. So that is awesome and will be a big improvement.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Hi, I have a question. I have a question for actually both of you. Looking at our ridership numbers and comparing September to last year to September this year, there was a pretty big fall off, it looks like, and looking up above, it looks like it was due to the Columbia Gorge Express route. Do you have any idea why that might have happened?
Give me 1 second to pull it up.
If you look at the bottom,
Are you saying a large fall off between last September and this September, or a large fall off between last month and this month?
no, if you look at all routes in September of last year to September of this year, we went from 4.2 rides per hour to 2.7. And then if you look at the Columbia Gorge Express numbers, it went from 5.2 rides per hour to 3.8. So that accounts for most of that drop off. And I'm wondering if you know why that might have happened.
No, my assumption would be tourism and the start of school season, but
Yeah, because you're showing the city route drop from 1665 to 771 as well too. So over half.
I think we need to dig into that a little more.
so wait, sorry.
And the
Drop
Multnomah project
last
ended,
year?
right?
from last year. So last year we had 771, and this year we have
Oh,
1665.
I was reading it the other way, sorry.
Daryl, are you looking at that correctly? So the left is the oldest, the right is the newest.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
I was just trying to help you. I wasn't reading it the same
I
way.
guess I am looking at it backwards. Okay, so we've had
I
a
was
big
like, wait a minute,
increase.
am I
Okay.
hearing something wrong?
Yeah, because I don't
That's
have
what
numbers
we
in front of me, but I'm
wanted
like, that doesn't sound right.
It says that you're in this document at the moment.
Well,
Yeah.
maybe I am.
Okay, almost a good question, Daryl.
Well, I think it was great in the fact that it's highlighting how well we've been doing compared to last year and the uptick in our ridership. So I think
Yeah,
that's
that's what we want to see.
I think that's what you were doing, Daryl.
Yeah.
I think you were highlighting the fact that it was so great.
That, yeah, indirectly.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to agenda item number 9, the executive direct report.
Right. Thank you. And I will work on speeding through here because we are kind of short on time. So for the Gorge to Mountain funding, so here I will be asking you for approval to follow the staff recommendation or suggest changes as you feel appropriate based on what I provided in the memo, and I will go over it. So basically the memo I provided you all kind of provides a background for how we have funded the Gorge to Mountain Express service in the past and the options to fund it this year. This year, again, we have not yet received the flat funding, which we applied for. However, we also haven't been necessarily told that we've been awarded it. But even if we were awarded it, we can't use it for this service this winter. So we need to figure out how to fund it. And I have highlighted a couple of different options. Basically for a base service, so that would be 4 times a day, similar to what we did last year. We would need about $155,000. And that allows for a fairly good buffer, just based on the fact that we've seen such a big amount of inflation and things just cost a lot more than they were. Last year we spent about $100,000 on the service, so that is a big uptick. That's a pretty good buffer for us. And then if we would like to add some options so people can do night skiing, then it would go up to about 180,000. So the different funding options that I've highlighted are, and then we would probably use a lot of them in conjunction. So as a whole, they would kind of all help us be able to provide the service. So the first potential solution, or part of the solution, is moving some of our funds that we have allotted to our medical cares or medical Portland shuttle cares funds, moving about $50,000 of that over to regular cares so that we could use it for the Gorge to Mountain funding.
And that doesn't put anything there at risk.
No.
Okay.
We've had kind of a lot less use of that service than we thought we would. So a lot less expenses, and we feel that we can still provide the service the remainder of this funding or this grant period, and with the funds that we will keep in that bucket. And then going forward, I'm looking at adding that service into our STIF funds, our formula funds, so that we can still provide that service, but we don't need the same level that we had kind of identified originally as of now. And then potential ODOT contribution. Last year, they were able to provide about $67,000. And working with ODOT to see what help they can potentially provide. I've also reached out to Mount Hood Meadows and the school district, and they both told me that they would look into it. The school district, they applied for some grant funds last year with the thought that they could potentially work with us to provide opportunities for their students to do night skiing at the Meadows, their ski team specifically. So, and then last resort kind of in my thought is using some funds from the reserve to mitigate some of the gap potentially that might exist after I've gone through those other options. So what I'm asking for you all is to approve me to continue exploring these different options and moving forward as I deem appropriate based on the opportunities that I've been able to work with the different funding sources. And if you would like, because I know that, I mean, obviously there we don't want to use reserve funds, but if that is a last resort to meet the number that we need, if you don't feel comfortable for just saying yes, go ahead and use it. If you would like to have a specific amount that I can use only, or if you just would rather me not use reserve funds at all, that's okay. I'm just asking for that direction and that approval so I don't have to kind of come back and ask for that. I can just move forward.
So just doing the math, it looks like if you add all those up, it's about 142. So is the ask from the resort to cover that remaining $13,000, or is it to go to 180? What are you expecting from
So that reserve would
those pesky ski resorts?
So I think a lot of that is kind of just talking with them, and I need to know more from ODOT to really understand. I think the reserve, I would ideally only use that to get to that base level if we absolutely need to.
Okay.
I think that if we can work with the resorts and the school district to get us up to that 80 and provide that night skiing, that would offer a lot of additional opportunities for the local community that right now we cannot provide.
I think it's important service. It's
Yeah.
a more hazardous time for people to be driving, and that sounds like the school district is more likely to chip in if there's that extended service.
Correct.
I think that's the
I think
only
we
way
want-
they're gonna chip
Yeah.
in.
Right.
They
I mean,
needed
and
to
it makes
do that.
sense not to have high schoolers driving up to the mountain at night.
It's also an equity issue, you know,
Yeah.
for the kids that have parents that can afford to
Yeah.
drive them
Give
up,
them a
and
car
then
to
there's the
drive them
kids
up,
that
right.
can't.
Yeah.
So thoughts, questions?
So how much do you think you might need to pull from the reserves? And what's our reserve?
So I was thinking that if we do pull from the reserve, kind of cap it at 25,000. I don't want to go any further than that. And I think if you put, so if we have 50,000 from our cares and at least 70,000 from ODOT, then that gets us to 120.
Mhm.
So then potentially 30 from private entities to get us that base level, more if we can provide those other services.
Yeah, I know Meadows would do 10. I know a guy there who can make decisions.
Yeah, okay, good. Nice to have that.
Yeah.
And I think last year, I mean, there was also backup services with mechanics and other stuff to be called as goodwill towards a thing to help out with some minor issues. I know there wasn't a lot of that, but I was informed on some of those are how they're supported, but that support was still there as well.
And high school has Alpine and Nordic teams that practice after school. So-
So I've been talking to Pete Lawson,
Mhm.
so I'm not sure if he,
So yeah,
And-
athletic director or-
I know he works with one of the at-risk program. And I forget specifically what his role is, but he is the person to talk to the people that also need to be talked to.
Okay. Sounds like you're on it.
And if you need my help talking to Timberline too, I know I gave you contact, but
I actually
All right,
didn't go
well,
through, so I need to.
Okay.
I would like to move to approve up to $25,000 to draw from the reserve fund if needed to reach the level where we can provide service, including the Gorge Mountain service, including night service.
Okay. So just to clarify, that means that even if we can reach the 150 level or the 160-ish level without the reserve, allowing the reserve to be that additional bump so we can do the night skiing as well.
That's what I'm proposing, yeah.
Okay.
I'll make the second.
okay.
All right.
Further discussion? Okay, go to a vote. All in favor?
I,
Aye.
I can vote on it.
Yeah, yes.
Okay. Any opposed? Okay, chair votes aye.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much. For the Gorge Regional Transit Strategy, we are a major piece of this, as we are one of the providers, and we are also the only transportation district as part of this. And just a reminder, so the Gorge Regional Transit Strategy includes us, the Link/McEd, Mount Adams Transportation Service over in Clinton County.
Kathy
as
was
well.
on here earlier.
She had to run. She has to leave at 5. Sherman, or sorry, not Sherman, Skamania County. I want to make sure you guys are up to date on it. I know that you all, or several of you, have been part of the stakeholder interviews that they have done. They have also done or McKed specifically has created a public involvement plan, an existing conditions report, identified the gaps and opportunities, and highlighted different governance models for the Gorge Transit Network to carry out the vision of the connected gorge. So this is super important because we're potentially looking at what potentially might change for governance structure. So it's not necessarily 4 different agencies providing transit, but there are a couple of different options that could be used instead. So I am not asking for any decisions. This is really just for informational purposes as well. I do also have some homework that I am going to give you because I would like you to think about what you all need for criteria to think about a different governance structure. Because something to remember is we are the only, again, transportation district. And so we have a very different model than all the other agencies. We have a board we report to. You guys are the ones that make our decisions, obviously,
A
as you
really
know.
cool.
Yeah, really cool board.
Best board in the gorge.
Yeah. And we have funding opportunities that not necessarily all the other agencies have. So I want you all to think about what really makes sense. And so at the November board meeting, Kathy is going to be giving an update on the Gorge Transit Regional Strategy. And I'm going to send you out a very detailed memo of the different governance structures and my thoughts and the things that I feel are very important for us to kind of move forward with the different options. But because we're kind of limited of time, I'm going to send you out this information, and I'd like you to think about it and think what you really need. I think from just kind of a high level perspective, for us, the opportunity needs to be financially beneficial for us and allow us to be or to access more funding than we currently already do.
Is there going to be a test on this homework?
Maybe. I might be giving candy out to whoever answers correctly.
Well, I appreciate you being proactive and educating us prior to somebody coming before us to make some recommendations. So thank you.
Yeah. But yeah, so I'll send out all the information. I'll send out a memo kind of with detailed information. I'll also send the different options so you can review it and you can kind of think about it. I'm sorry, I said November. It's going to be the December board meeting that we're going to have it. So I can add it to the board meeting if we need to, if you have any questions in preparation for that. But I wanted to bring it up, especially since you guys have been having stakeholder meetings. So you were kind of aware of the status and what it could really potentially mean for us and the implications that are there.
Okay, thank you.
The next is the summer seasonal Columbia Gorge Express service for 2023. Again, this is for informational purpose only. Originally, ODOT was going to attend, and we were going to bring you a proposal for what we wanted to do next summer instead of the Falls to Locks service that we did this past year. I also want to add that we have signed the Falls to Locks contract, and we will be submitting all the reimbursements for, or the invoices for that, so we are made whole. The reason why we are talking about the summer service for next year now is because obviously there is a long contract process, and I am not going to be operating a service ever again without a signed contract. So we want to make sure we are on top of it. So what I'm going to be doing is next week or so, I'm going to send you out again a memo with the detailed proposal for what we want to do and the cost, et cetera, et cetera. And my ask is if you can just review it and let me know if there's any additional information you need so that at the November board meeting, you feel comfortable with either approving or denying that proposal so that we can get that started and moved through.
Great.
Okay.
We're gonna have multiple things in it, right? We weren't just gonna have a.
One proposal. No, there's going to be a couple of different options. It's going to show the expense, the service available, and it also has it broken out of the riders that we have seen from Multnomah Falls versus Cascade Locks and Hood River to kind of help you make your decision. Okay, so the next one is the SDIF plan 2023-2025. Again, this is for your informational purpose only. So again, each biennium, so 2 years, we have to submit a new SDIF plan, which is statewide transportation improvement funds funding. And there's several different types of SDIF funding. The STIF plan is specifically for the formula funds. So those are funds that we receive automatically at the beginning of each quarter. And these funds specifically right now fund our Hood River City route, outreach, our student program, as well as just maintaining services. So we are working on this next one, and that's why we have our SDIF advisory committee. They are meeting on Friday to go over the high percentage of low income individuals threshold. So they're going to be looking at our counties at a census data level, forgetting that specific term, but and deciding what the definition is. So how many low income individuals need to live in a certain area for it to be considered a high percentage of low income area. And that helps make sure that we are providing service to the correct areas. They're also going to be prioritizing statewide network and discretionary project applications, which I will also be bringing to you at the November meeting for your approval. But that's the Columbia Gorge Express, as well as our improved technology application and a improved outreach application that we are working with McKiff on. And we'll also be going over the amount of funds that's projected to be available for these formula funds. It is super complicated as to how ODOT creates these formulas, but basically we have projected funds, and then we'll also be going over potential projects that we could include in our plan. And then we'll take the feedback provided by the advisory committee for our second advisory committee meeting, which is going to be December 9th. And we will be going over the draft SIF plan. And then at the December meeting, board meeting, I'll be asking you guys to approve the draft SIF plan or suggest changes.
So
And then,
that'll be presented to us ahead of time for review? Or?
yes. Mhm. And then we have to submit that to ODOT by January 10th. Okay, the next one is Multnomah Falls permit. So after reflecting on our last board meeting and Letty's great question about how the Multnomah Falls permitting project went, I wanted to make sure you guys had more information about it. And the overall kind of big highlights is that this program in general is seen as a success. Specific highlights are there was increased transit use. However, private providers did not see expected results, but I do think we have the opportunity to work with them more next year to ensure that they will see a higher ridership. So meaning maybe we do dual tickets. So if somebody buys a day ticket, they can get on the Sasquatch shuttle potentially and use that service as well, or something to that degree. I think there's an opportunity there. There was reduced congestion, there was reduced traffic volumes, and there was positive neighbor feedback. There is, I think I said this last time, but anecdotally, there was Tara Lingley from ODOT said that one of the neighbors who had been very vocal about how against this program she was, for the Multnomah Falls permit specifically, not necessarily the Exit 31 one, that she did not think it was going to be a success, but after seeing it and seeing the reduction of traffic volume in their neighborhood, she thought it was a great success. So
That's nice to hear that converts.
yeah. There was no major crashes, and in general, there was an improved visitor experience. There was seen to be some opportunity in the fact that largely there was recognition among the partners that this was kind of a piecemeal solution to creating a safer Multnomah Falls. And the goal is to make a not piecemeal solution. So instead of having 5 different partners, one, us doing the permitting at Exit 31, and 2 other doing the ticketing at the other locations, it was just really confusing. And then in general, the system was confusing. And once people learned about the loopholes, they used them. Yep. So sorry, just trying to really rush through here so we're not too late. The transit master plan update, again, this is just for information purposes. The second survey is open, so I am pleading with you to please share amongst your networks, and I can send it out again if you'd like me to. In-person outreach for this second survey is ramping up this week. We will be doing similar to what we did last time, where we actually went to different organizations like Guadalajara, or Mercado Guadalajara, as well as McIsaacs and Dog River Coffee, and then also a coffee shop in Cascade Locks to do like, hey, we'll buy your coffee, or we'll give you $5 if you do the survey.
I think it'd be a good idea to send it out again to the board. Sure.
Yeah. The survey will be closing in the second week of November, so this was a shorter time frame than the last one. I will also be
Sorry again, we closed the first week
second week of
of
November.
November.
Yeah.
Ivy said she tried to send it out to her whole school again, like she did it before, and she was blocked on the permissions
Oh, no, like by the school or by us?
by the school.
Okay.
Yeah, which I think she probably didn't have permission the first time she did. Noticed that people were sending out surveys that way and did it too. So, but maybe she could ask.
I feel like we should be able to ask and
Yeah.
we should be able to make that happen.
Would you like to ask?
I can
Okay.
ask, but I think maybe if you as a parent are willing to also call and ask, or
Sure,
if Ivy
maybe I
can
could
ask.
ask her too. I think that'd be a good
Yeah.
challenge for her.
Yeah.
To explain that she's on the committee. Yeah. Okay.
I think that'd be really wonderful.
Okay.
And then but I will ask, but if she needs any help, just let me know.
Okay. Thanks.
I will be presenting at the Cascade Lock City Council next week, sharing about the survey and the different options for Cascade locks that we are proposing. And then also just updating them in general about the transit master plan. I've already done this for the city of Hood River.
Can you remind the board when the transit master plan is scheduled to be complete?
Yes, so the draft plan should be done by January, I believe, at the latest. And the whole plan needs to be completed by June 30th, 2023, because that's when our grant is done. And it has to be adopted by the board as well. So, Patty Fink will be presenting the draft service options report. So taking all the feedback that we received from the community on the different options and providing a report of how we actually implement it and what that will look like will be at the November board meeting. So kind of
It's
a quick
big
turnaround.
November board meeting.
Yeah.
It is a big November
Is it
board
going
meeting.
to include slideshow from her bike trip or anything too?
I mean, they might. If you ask her, she
Yeah.
probably would, or at least at the end of the meeting, she'd show you all about it. All right, any questions on that?
Nope.
All right, did I
All right.
talk slow enough to?
I
No,
love
I
it. Thank you
processed
for,
it, yes.
thank you for
Okay.
being prepared and coming with notes. All right, item number 10, any other discussion items from the board?
I just had a public comment from a neighbor. She said that she was interested in the early morning shuttle, but felt leery of taking it because she didn't feel like lighting was adequate here. I asked her to call in and share that, but I don't know if she did.
Not that I have heard, but we will make note of that. And I know last year we had a couple comments and we tried to make sure that, or we make sure all the lights were working and everything, but I think that's a good to do, just another review and make sure it's.
It may have been some time since she checked that as well. So.
I mean, there's a ton of light out
Yeah.
front.
Yeah.
Well, I think in general, it's not necessarily the most inviting space when there's not people here in the office in the morning. So,
Okay,
all right.
any other discussion items? All right, upcoming events, anybody wants to make any aware of?
I will be on vacation again, November 2nd through November 9th, and I will send out a notice on that.
Awesome.
Enjoy.
All right, I need a final motion from somebody. Maybe to adjourn the meeting?
Okay, I moved to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second.
Thank you, Letty. All in favor?
We lost her.
Aye.
Bye.
Okay, well, then we just got to stay here if we lost our form.
No, we didn't.
Any opposed?
Since Lucky's here.
Okay, thank you, guys. Appreciate your time here tonight. Have a good
Thank you
evening.
so much.
Bye,
Have a good
Daryl.
night.
Bye.
See you guys.
See you
Bye.
later.
That wasn't bad.